Coming up, Aaron Judge officially ties Roger Maris, and the Mariners have the playoffs in their sights. This is Locked On Game to Game MLB.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB, local experts taking you from game to game through Major League Baseball's action last night. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens, and thank you for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. After one of the longest home run droughts of the season from Aaron Judge, we finally got number 61 in Toronto on Wednesday to tie the American League record, and the Yankees got a win too. Locked On Yankees tells you more on a historic day.
This is Stacey Gotsoulias of Locked On Yankees, and a record was tied in Toronto, a long-standing Yankees record. Garrett Cole tied Ron Guidry's 1978 strikeout mark of 248. How exciting! I'm just kidding. Yes, that did actually happen, but the record that everyone cares about was finally tied. Aaron Judge hitting number 61, tied with Roger Maris now. He got that monkey off his back, and now he just needs to pass Roger Maris, which at this point, it's a given. It's going to happen. And the great thing about Judge's home run was Garrett Cole coughed up a 3-0 lead, allowed Toronto to tie the game, and Aaron Judge was like, don't worry, I got this. And he hit a ball into the bullpen, which thank you, Aaron, for doing that, because that means certain people didn't get a hold of the ball. He listened to me. I told him to do that last week. Now, of course, I told him last week because I thought he was going to hit 61 sooner than he did, but he finally got it done. So we'll have a recap of this on the next Locked On Yankees. The home run, the game, the win, Cole's pitching performance, and everything else you need to know.
The Dodgers set a record of their own, beating the Padres Wednesday night. Locked On Dodgers tells you about a little bit of LA history made in San Diego.
I'll be honest, before this year, I didn't even know I could count to 107. What's up? It's Jeff from Locked On Dodgers. The Dodgers won their 107th game of the season on Wednesday night, establishing a new franchise record. Their previous records were 106, set last year and the previous full season, 2019. So now, and in 2020, they were on pace for 116 wins in the shortened season. So they are on an unprecedented stretch these last 4 years. This game was ugly. They won 1-0. They left 11 runners on base, actually. And it was kind of like the night before. It seemed like maybe they didn't really want to win. Luckily, the pitching kept them in it, and the Dodgers got just enough. They got an RBI single from Freddie Freeman in the top of the 10th inning, and then Tommy Kainani came in and shut the door on the Padres in the bottom of the 10th. The pitching was outstanding. Julio Urias pitched 6 great innings, and then Evan Phillips, Yency Almonte, Alex Vesia, and Tommy Kainani finished it off. None of them allowed a run, and I mean, that's a lot of the postseason bullpen you're looking at. It was kind of a preview on the pitching side of what the postseason will hopefully look like for the Dodgers. On the offensive side, hopefully not. Joey Gallo struck out 4 times, left 8 runners on base. He hopefully won't ever get 4 plate appearances in a postseason game, let alone 4 strikeouts. Anyway, a lot to talk about with this game, so be sure to check out Locked On Dodgers first thing in the morning.
Locked On Mariners can almost taste a playoff spot. This is the first time they're going to be in the postseason in 20 seasons, and it could come as soon as today after Seattle beat the Orioles on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Locked On Rangers looks at the positives in a low-scoring loss.
3 is the magic number. This is Siding Gonzalez, host of the Locked On Mariners podcast here. And yes, indeed, the Mariners' magic number is now down to 3 as the Mariners defeat the Rangers by a score of 3-1, and the Orioles lose to the Red Sox, funny enough, by a score of 3-1. It's going to happen, folks. It is going to happen. They are going to do this. They are absolutely going to do this. It really is just a matter of when. At this point, Friday or Saturday looks to be like the prime opportunity for the Mariners to finally clinch their first playoff berth since 2001. So if you're looking to get to the ballpark, I'd shoot for one of those days in order to see this team finally clinch at long last. The moment that we have all been waiting for, the moment that we all deserve after 20 years of misery is upon us. We're going to be talking about this on the Locked On Mariners podcast tomorrow. So catch us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll talk to you then. Peace.
A great performance from Martin Perez was just not enough in this one. The Rangers lose 3-1 in Seattle. I'm Bryce Patrick, host of the Locked On Rangers podcast. Just a really bad offensive performance by the Rangers tonight after an offensive explosion from Josh Young, who had a really nice night, drove in the only Rangers run in this one, a multi-hit game from Nathaniel Lowe. One hit for Marcus Semien, but really only 5 hits and 1 walk in this one by the Rangers offense. It was a solid performance from Martin Perez in what is his next to last start for the Rangers this season. 7 innings, 3 runs, all of which were earned, 3 walks and 3 strikeouts. Was able to work around a decent bit of action on the bases, but George Kirby was just better. 6 innings of just 1 run ball, and the Mariners pen was able to come in and shut the door. Eric Swanson, Munoz, and Sewald were able to come in and just close it out. The Rangers were not able to mount much of any offense without Corey Seager in this one, a multi-hit game for Nathaniel Lowe. But without Corey Seager, everyone moved up a little bit in the lineup. Adolis Garcia hitting the 3-hole, Josh Young hitting cleanup, but just not enough offense for the Rangers in this one. For more, check out the Locked On Rangers podcast.
The one last team that's keeping the Mariners out of the playoffs is the Baltimore Orioles. They took a loss to the Boston Red Sox at Fenway on Wednesday. Locked On Orioles is kind of accepting that it's probably over at this point, while Locked On Red Sox is just happy to win a game before the end of the season.
Well, here's what I have to say about that game. If your only good performances come from Robinson Chirinos and Keegan Aiken, the game's going to be a loss 100 out of 100 times. Connor Newcomb here, host of Locked On Orioles, as the O's fall 3-1 to the Boston Red Sox on Wednesday night. Have now dropped 2 out of 3 in this 4-game series, and they're not mathematically eliminated, but I mean, it doesn't even matter what the Mariners do later tonight. It's pretty much over for the O's. I mean, even if they have to make up 4 games in the standings with 7 games remaining, it's just not happening. And it's becoming the unfortunate truth for the Orioles here. It's been an amazing season, but they limped down the stretch in September, and unfortunately, after a rough outing, it's basically over here. I'll recap it all coming up on Thursday's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
The Red Sox certainly like to make things interesting for us, as the Orioles nearly tied it in the 9th inning, but Matt Barnes got it together, closed the door, and sealed the 3-1 win for the Red Sox on Wednesday. Hey, it's Lauren from Locked On Red Sox, and even though these games don't matter, the Red Sox still want to win. We still want to see this season end on a positive note, and they did just that with Wednesday's win. Rich Hill pitched 6 shutout innings. He looked so strong on the mound. Tristan Casas continued to show incredible patience at the plate. The bullpen did its job, even in the 9th when things got a little dicey. All in all, a good win for Boston. And even though these wins do not matter for the Red Sox, they are not going to the postseason in 2022. We still are going to look at the good from these games and what fans can look forward to in 2023. I'll break down this win for you, all the good and some of the not so good, on our next episode of Locked On Red Sox.
Another team not technically out at this point, the San Francisco Giants. They stayed hot and they beat the Rockies at home. Both Locked On Rockies and Giants have more after a 3rd straight San Francisco win and a 4th straight Colorado loss.
Rock on Rockies fans, Paul Holden here from the Locked On Rockies podcast. Well, it's kind of like deja vu at this point with the Rockies. They can't score on the road, they give up runs early, and then they fall short. That's exactly what the Giants are doing. The Giants are staying alive in this postseason race. I know it's still a stretch, but the Rockies just simply, there's really no other way to say it, and this might be crass, but the Rockies suck against the Giants. The Giants absolutely dominate the Colorado Rockies. They figured out how to play them at Coors. They figured out how to play them in San Francisco, and they will continue to be a better team than the Rockies until some adjustments are made. And the Giants continue to be really, really successful against the Rockies, and it's really tough that this season ends with this trip to San Francisco and then a trip to LA. We'll be breaking it all down right here on Locked On Rockies.
The Giants won again. They've won 8 of 9. They have 7 games remaining. And hey, technically, they're not eliminated yet. Ben Caspick with the Locked On Giants podcast. Okay, they couldn't be closer to elimination. Well, actually, they could. They have an elimination number of 2, but they would need to basically win all of their remaining games and have the Phillies and the Brewers lose almost all of their remaining games. So while they're technically not eliminated yet, and MLB thankfully fixed the error they were showing on their website, it's nice that the Giants are playing well here down the stretch and winning 8 of 9, not just playing well, playing great. And they're only 1 game under 500. And so, look, Jock Peterson said yesterday it's not a goal of his for the team to get to 500. Well, I'm not sure everybody feels that way, and I think it is an important goal. Get there and pass it. And you've got Carlos Rodon on the mound tomorrow. Tonight, you had some really impressive pitching performances out of the bullpen. Shelby Miller was lights out again. Sean Jelly kind of rebounded nicely after a little bit of a shaky start, and the offense did enough. They got going early and they tacked on late. So great to see out of the Giants. We'll break it down tomorrow and preview Carlos Rodon on Locked On Giants tomorrow, where it's your team every day.
Coming up, the Mets continue their fight for the division while the Astros close in on the best record in the American League. This is Locked On Game to Game. Today's edition of Locked On Game to Game is brought to you by Blue Chew. There is nothing sexier than confidence, and Blue Chew can give you confidence where it counts. If you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, chew it and do it. We have a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew for free when you use promo code Locked On at checkout. You just pay $5 in shipping. That's bluechew.com, promo code Locked On to receive your first month for free. You visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. Welcome back to Locked On Game to Game MLB. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On MLB on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. The Houston Astros are likely going to clinch that top seed in the American League, but they did not get any closer last night with a loss and, of course, a Yankees win. Locked On Astros explains how Arizona broke Houston's 3-game win streak.
Hey there, the Houston Astros have not locked up home field advantage for the American League. Are you kidding me? The Arizona Diamondbacks defeat the Astros 5-2 in extra innings. Justin Verlander, 8 strikeouts tonight. Solid pitching performance. Chas McCormick was trying to play hero. Really thought this was going to be the Chas McCormick game. He did hit a 2-run homer. Late inning heroics didn't happen. The sparks were about to fly. Vasquez didn't come through in the clutch. Jose Altuve tried to bunt his way on. There's so many things that happened. Will Smith gave up the runs in the end there, and the Astros just delay the inevitable, I guess, going into the Rays series. So make sure you tune in to Locked On Astros. Remember, we're your team every day. Check us out on YouTube, on Apple, Google, Spotify. We have you covered. And the Astros clinch home field advantage in the playoffs and so much more. And as always, go Stros.
The New York Mets have found themselves in a battle for the division in the final week of the season after they've led the East all year long. With a chance to go back in the lead on their own, Locked On Mets takes you through the clutch win.
Eduardo Escobar, with the game of his life, or at least the game of his life in a Mets uniform, carries this team 5 RBIs, and they will enter the biggest series of the season with a 1-game lead over the Atlanta Braves. This is Ryan Finkelstein, the host of Locked On Mets, and on the show tomorrow, what a game to discuss. The Mets were trailing. It seemed like they were out of it. And then Eduardo Escobar leads them back. Homers, drives in 2, drives in the winning run. The bullpen was great. Close out that game. What a performance. And luckily the Braves dropped their game as well. So we will have that to discuss. What a night for the Mets, where things felt so doom and gloom. And just like so many other times this season, the New York Mets answer the call and find their way back in first place in the National League East.
That's all for today on Locked On Game to Game MLB. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts to Locked On MLB. And of course, subscribe to your team's specific podcast as well. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.